Nice discipline. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Potter. I am an assistant professor of music education at San Diego State University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this session this afternoon, Classroom Management when you teach every student in your school. Our presenters are all from the, make sure I get it right, the Chula Vista Elementary School District. I'm from the Midwest. And we have Lowri Casimiro, Seligman, Crystal Pridmore, Marc Keehmer, and Zoe Kumagai. Enjoy.
All right, so before we begin, wow, we had 30 people register. There's more than that in here right now. We wanted to quickly have you turn to a shoulder buddy, and we would like to hear just from a few people what you are hoping to walk out of this session with. I'm hearing from the chatter that the title resonated with a lot of us who teach every child in the school, so turn to a shoulder buddy, come up with something that you're hoping to walk away with, and we'd like to hear from you. 60 seconds beginning now. That was what we call a teacher minute. It might be real, it might be a minute, it might be 80 seconds, it might be 40. Would anybody like to share? What are you hoping to walk out of this session with? I need a brave soul. Thank you for going first. Yes?
I'm hoping to, from this, get some new creative strategies for classroom management. I'm on a bit of a fact-finding mission for my school as a mentor teacher, and want to, bring back some stuff for my mentees who were not able to be here today.
Okay, good. Anyone else? What are you hoping to walk away with? Can I see real quick, how many of you are music teachers? Good. Okay, art, drama. Anybody I'm missing? Dance. Yay. Sorry, dance, we love you. We incorporate dance into music, so I lump those together. We are all elementary music teachers, but we are Orff Schulwerk based, so we do a lot of dance in our classrooms. We incorporate a lot of visual art. We also have instrumental ensembles. Lori is strings, I'm strings, Jonathan and Mark are band, Zoe's also strings. So we do, and we all do choir. We do a little bit of it all. So before I move on, let me tell you what we're hoping to get out of it. Can you advance the slide, please? Okay, our classroom philosophy, all of us have a very similar philosophy, but we execute it in different ways. So we're going to throw a bunch of strategies at you, and you can take what sticks. But first and foremost, I'm going to quote my advisor from Point Loma Nazarene University, who is no longer with us, Dr. Dan Nelson, and say that it is all relational. And it comes down to you have to have a solid relationship with your students, and it has to come from a compassionate place first, which is challenging. I teach 400 students, so how do you begin to develop that warm demeanor and have that good relationship with 400 kids? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about building an inclusive classroom that just brings every child in, regardless of ability level, language skills, wherever they are able to participate, and consistency, because we believe that you have to make every child in your classroom feel safe, or learning doesn't occur. And especially when you're a creative teacher and you're asking the kids to be creative, creativity is vulnerable, and you can't make art without getting rid of a little bit of your facade and bringing your true self out. So that's what we're hoping to cover today.
All right, yes, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about starting off class. And when we all kind of talked to each other about what we wanted to present on, classroom management has been something that all of us have struggled with. And for me, I just want to talk a little bit about why this part is why I want to talk about, and then also how you can make, my ideas maybe work for you. So just to go back in my own personal timeline, was I started teaching in Chula Vista. This is my 5th year, so it was 4 years ago. I started at a big school, Veterans, if you're from Veterans. Yeah, I know, some of my friends are here. So it's a big school, 900 students, and there wasn't a full-time VAPA teacher on campus before we started that year. So I had walked onto the campus thinking, oh, okay, I need to set up my music room, and then only to find out, oh, there's no music room. So then it was, okay, let me set up my cart. Oh, there's no cart for you. So it was a lot of learning how to adapt, and that was my big takeaway from those first 2 years of teaching was adapting not only to different environments, but being prepared for teaching sometimes 10 classes a day and like multiple grade levels. So, I'd load up that cart in the morning and just be ready for anything. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the positives that came from adapting in those first 2 years. So I would walk into, let's say, a 4th grade class, and students would be packing up their computers or like stacking their textbooks, and that was their homeroom environment. And that was really beneficial to me because I got to learn from that teacher's system of behavior management. And there were over 30 classrooms, so I got to learn about all those different styles of management. Kind of like the flip side of that coin is that I kind of deferred to their systems. So then when I switched schools to another school in Chula Vista, a smaller school, I had my room finally, so it was like a huge moment. But I realized I didn't really have my own style of management, of classroom management. So when students would arrive to me, that was a little different, and I didn't quite know what to do. I felt awkward because I didn't know anyone. I had gone from having this community of teachers that I knew, students that I knew, and then like, oh, I don't know anyone now. So the first year was really rough. It felt like my first year, even though it was my 3rd year teaching. And the beginning of class was chaotic. Sometimes it would take 15 minutes just for me to connect with students, to feel like I could begin, because it was just crazy, right? You take away the chairs and the desks, and students who at that school, they hadn't had music before either. They were like, what do? We sit on the floor? Why do we sit on the floor? So I reflected back after that first rough year of like not knowing what to do. First of all, I thought about, okay, what is it that I want to do better for myself? Because I was going home at the end of the day and I was thinking, wow, I feel like I didn't teach anything. And I see some people going like this, like, yeah, it's not a great feeling. And I felt like I could do better for students and I could do better for myself. So I thought, hey, one thing that I can focus on is the beginning of class. So that's my why, long-winded reason for why, but what I did is, so I reflected and I thought, okay, have I seen like examples of teaching where the beginning of class felt safe, it was calm, and that's really was my most important thing. I wanted students to feel safe. So I thought back to my credentialing program, and there's some people here from Laundry Bard, so that's really cool. We did a Saturday workshop with conscious discipline, and we talked about greetings at the front of the class. So I have an example of what I created. So I chose 4, and you can choose your own. And this is kind of an adaptation from what we did in conscious discipline. There was an apron involved, but that didn't quite work. So anyway, I put this on a piece of paper, and it was really on a whim when I decided to do this. It was the day before school started this year, and I just drew those. I didn't have nice looking graphics like you see today. It took me 5 minutes. I put it on the door, and I just told students before they came in, you choose one, and then I didn't worry about what happened inside. I mean, I was worried, but I decided, okay, this is one skill that we're gonna do. We're gonna focus on doing a greeting, and then once they came in, then I talked to them on a separate, like separate segment of class about how we were going to sit down and all that. So you choose your 5. And I think if you got the handout, then there's a little QR code, and you can grab that graphic if you want in our presentation, or you can make up your own. I had a student say, you need to add a wave, so do what you want. And it's great because there were at least 5 students from every class in the last year that I felt like I never made a connection with. They would come in with their head down. They would not really participate or put themselves out there during class. And now I don't have that problem. So this is one thing that works for me. I know that a lot of orchestral work teachers do movement when you walk into class, and that's awesome too. But here's one like concrete way that you could start. And I'm going to give you one other thing to beginning class. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so earlier, I think was it this school year? Maybe it was last school year. We had Coast Music Therapy come do a professional development with our cohort of Chula Vista music teachers. And they recommended having a checklist at the front of your classroom. And I loved that so much that I do that all the time. I like made one for myself here. I leave it because it helps me stay on task. But then also the benefit for students is, let's say you have a student who does not like to sing, and you have on your first thing vocal warm-ups, and they're dreading it. But then you have like 5 or 6 other things planned. Then they have something to look forward to, and it's visual, and you can always just point back to it and say, okay, we'll just get through this part of the class, but then there'll be something later for you. And I made these on canva.com, which is a free website. You can pay for it if you want, but you can do a lot for free. So I think we're going to talk about trends.
Yeah, we're going on to start a class for performing
arts.
Can I borrow your notes real quick, Caitlin? So just to make it really clear, if you use this QR code, it will take you to our website, and you can grab our entire presentation off there. You can download the graphics, and we're hopefully going to be adding a couple more things for you there. So if you have questions, our contact information is on here. We're happy to share anything. And I just wanted to say too, Zoe shared those things with me before this year, and I started implementing them, and I've seen a complete transformation in the culture of my classroom. For that reason, when you're processing 120 to 200 kids or more a day through your classroom, it gives you that second, just that little knuckles or just a little bit of eye contact, and it creates that sense of warmth. So I say hi to everyone in the hallway, and they give me a hand sign, and I'm shocked at how many kids want a hug. There are some boys that I never would think, would want a hug from me, but they hug me extra tight. It's really special. And then we do artwork movement into the classroom. And then again, when you're teaching 5 to 10 classes a day, and it's the same content, it's easy to miss stuff because it's like, well, I already did that activity 4 times today. So the checklist is really helpful. Yeah, it's good accountability. So thanks, it's made a difference for me, friend.
Awesome.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah,
no, I was just gonna say that's something that I do for my general music classes. I think it could work for art. I think your art
absolutely.
teacher does
my art teacher does the same thing coming into the room. Yeah,
nice.
We unify it that way.
Okay,
So I at my school have an after-school band program, and then we also meet kind of during the day. But this is kind of geared towards any after-school programs that you might have. I always have a timer going on I have a TV that the students can see, so I have a timer going down. And it shows them when is band starting, so they can have a little freedom. It's after school, they've just finished a long day. If they want to get a snack, if they want to go to the restroom and do all that stuff, I tell them, be responsible, of course. But you have this time to yourself before we begin class. And once it hits 0, the expectation is to have your instrument put together and ready to learn. So that's the timer for when class begins. And then have room ready. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If you're wasting your time getting the room set up with kids, it can go really slow. It can go really fast if you kind of train them to that. But we just kind of started at my school, and so I have the room ready more often than not. I have a seating chart that I use, and along with that is an app called Idokia. I believe that's the name. If you're not familiar with it, it's a kind of an organizer on my iPad. So I have my seating chart on my app, and I know kind of who's there, so I can take attendance really quickly. And then I always start everything with breathing. And so it kind of just helps also get that day away. We typically breathe in for 2 counts, out for 12, in for 1, out for 16, out for 24.
Is the app IDO?
Okay.
We might be able to write it up.
IDOs.
Yep. Sorry, didn't come prepared for that. But yeah, so I do CEO. We can put it on our website, a link to it if you follow the QR code. And then, John, do you want to talk about your music class rules?
Yeah, so the music class rules that I have, I try to make it simple and just efficient, and I repeat it just so that it's constantly in their brains. It is an adaptation from Tim Wiegand's rules. Make it simple, make it straightforward. So I always say, follow instructions, pretty self-explanatory. Listen to the speaker, play, sing, and move safely, use kind and helpful language only, join everything we do, and the last one's kind of new, cooties don't exist. Because when we hold hands doing circle games, it's like, oh, it's a girl, a boy. No, guys, cooties don't exist. Hold each other's hands, we got this. So it's straightforward, and also just make sure that if I need to remind a student, just say, look at rule number 1, look at rule number 3. So these are adapted from Tim Wiegand's.
Energize your music room. Boom. It's gold. Music teachers teach about it.
Can I just inject for a quick minute into the idea of ensembles? Because I run after school and before school orchestras, and I don't have the time, unfortunately, to get the room ready. So I'm slowly in the process of training my kids that they can do that themselves. And while they are setting up the ensemble space, I am busy tuning 40+ string instruments. So everybody has a task, and generally they finish setting up before I finish tuning. And I've got a fantastic cellist who just starts an impromptu rehearsal for me. He hits it from the cello chair, and I'm like, woo, right, carry on tuning.
We don't tune in, man, it's fine. Joking. Banter, relax, you take. Maybe. You should if you don't. See.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, transitions and signals. Well, one of the things that I've come up with for getting the kids back and getting them refocused is what I found was when we were playing a game that the kids were having so much fun with it. They were getting giggly, they were getting funny, and they were just enjoying it. Then I wanted them to be refocused, and there's me with my big glaring voice, which is way too forceful than I like when it comes to dealing with kindergartners and first graders, and I'm trying to get them to be quiet and refocus their attention this way. And all it succeeded in doing every single time was partially destroying the atmosphere that the game was creating. So I decided that I'd had enough of hearing myself ask them to be quiet, so I decided to sing it to them instead. And it just quite simply became 2 very simple songs for the younger ones. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready to have some fun? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When your voices are done. And they know that at the end of the song, they must be settled. With the older kids, it just became like, when your voices are off, I'll know that you're ready. When your voices are off, we can move on. And 95% of the time, they're all done by the time I stop singing. So that became my 2 hotspot signals, and it was just simply became by requirement because I wanted to maintain the atmosphere that I was setting up through the game without kind of going, you need to be quiet! I'm injecting terror into the whole thing.
And jumping on Lowri's idea, one thing that I've done is integrate, instead of singing songs, though I do some of that, I also integrate singing solfege so that it does 2 jobs, kills 2 birds with 1 stone. So when people are talking, I sing so mi, and they sing mi do, and I change it up so that they don't keep on repeating the same over and over again. But by doing so, their ears are attentive. They're singing, they're learning solfege, or rather they're relearning it. And it's just a way to bring people together without, as Lowri said, being extremely harsh on the kids and your vocal cords.
Can we practice that really quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Did it
Little
so quickly
echo
that
singing.
I was going to echo you. And
Okay.
If you don't
So-
sing, it's fine. Try it.
So mi, mi fa, mi do, re do. Usually by the 4th time,
Bingo.
95% is pretty
Done.
good.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll go with 95%.
Singing is magic.
Yes.
I believe that firmly. And for those of you that are not music teachers and you're like, I don't sing, use a sing-songy kind of a voice and you can get the same effect. And we know from brain research that small children are wired to learn from singing voices and to pay attention to musical voices way more than a speaking voice. It's just more effective and it makes a happier classroom. This is my #1 tip that I picked up for teaching Mod Severe SDC as well. I have fully integrated Mod Severe SDC in our school, and nothing quiets down a room and gets their attention more than singing. So I tend to use more piggyback songs just because that's what sticks in my brain. The kindergartners will think you're magic if you sing to them and you don't even have to be good. I'm trying to convince my kindergarten teachers of this. But my favorite is, are you listening? Are you listening? Eyes on me, hands in your lap, quietly, quietly. And then total silence. And sometimes I won't even think about it, but that "so me" is very effective, so I'll just sing whatever. Can you please stand up and get in a circle, friends? It's time to pay attention. Maybe throw a fa in there if you're feeling it, It doesn't have to be complicated. And after giving myself laryngitis for 3 years in a row from trying to yell at kindergarten, trying to get their attention, I have not been sick since I started singing to them in the middle of winter. It's so much, we have to protect our voices as teachers. When you're teaching hundreds of children, singing is just a healthier way to do it. So there you go.
Now, for those who are like me and don't love singing, there are those of you in the room. I use tea bells. So what I'd like to do is just show you how effective these are. There are about 45 people in this room. And what I'm going to do is when you hear the first bell, you're going to turn to someone next to you and tell them a favorite teacher, like the name of a favorite teacher and why. When you hear 2 bells, I'd like you to stop. Okay? So 1 bell, favorite teacher, next to your favorite teacher growing up and why they were your favorite teacher. And when you hear 2 bells, that's a sign to stop. You only have to do it once. That was amazing. With my kids, I only have to do it 2 or 3 times. But you hear just with these, they're like $10 on Amazon. You're able to cut through the talking, and it's a really effective tool. Granted, if you use it exclusively, it will wear off. But if you sprinkle it in with every other thing that you do, it's absolutely effective. My favorite thing about classroom management is that there's not one system that works. So we all have very different classrooms and very different populations. And so something like this is just great to have ideas. So for non-singers, that's totally okay. I don't identify as a singer, even though I kind of sing. Use the bells, absolutely game changer.
Nice. So another, I guess, like group of signals that I've been using at my school are silent signals for group discussions, and it's a school-wide practice, which I think also helps with your classroom management because it gives you accountability. Like students see you as like their teacher, like their classroom teacher. So a lot of schools are doing it now. So if you agree, it's this. If you disagree, it's this. If you're unsure or something was confusing, you can say this. So this isn't a whole group discussion. So some people have been doing it, like something resonates with you, you can go like this. And then of course like like speak louder or this one is like, if someone's stumbling or like they're having a hard time saying their thought out loud, you can go like this to encourage others. So
and also think. If they can't quite get the words out, you can just go think, and that means I'll come back to you in a minute. Think about what you want to say.
Also jumping off Zoe's idea, because a lot of students want to share their thoughts depending on the age group, especially the lower kids. They like really want to share, oh yeah, I agree with you, or oh yeah, I want to share something, instead of them saying yes. Having that streamlines the teaching and allows you as the teacher to help make the classroom more fluid.
Yeah, so all of these kind of like tools for transitions and signaling kind of ties into that like larger environment, school culture, and also in music, like you can think of it like it's an ensemble. Like your class that you see, maybe it's just like a 5th grade class. They're your ensemble, whether it be general music or an ensemble, like band or orchestra.
So transition to singles are very helpful for the day-to-day like one-on-one tasks, but on occasion, or just as you probably know as classroom teachers, there are times where you need to be a little more firm with the response. And so a simple redirect is just not enough. So every class has their own different classroom management system. At my school site, some teachers use Class Dojo to either incentivize or reprimand. Other classrooms use token economy. And by no means am I here to tell you which one to adopt, because that's going to be contingent upon your classroom and your community that you teach in. However, all 5 of us have a very similar philosophy, even though we have different approaches to classroom management. The backbone of our philosophy is that we try to create a sense of ensemble. And what I mean by that is, at least for me, at the beginning of the year I always tell my students that we are an ensemble. All of us, all 30 or 20 or however so, are part of the same musical family. Or another way to put it, we're part of one machine. And that each of us play a role. With one person that's not here, then it sounds just different. And so if like a clean machine or like a healthy family, when we're all working together, we can create some awesome music. But if one person's doing their own thing or is breaking one of the rules that we as a class have set upon, then that's like a machine with a missing gear. It starts chugging. This doesn't work properly. So I really try and instill the idea that we are an ensemble. And how this looks like, I have adopted this from Castle Park Elementary's music teacher, Hans Chamberlain, right here. And there, on my whiteboard, there are 30 magnets. Now, most students have their own classroom number. So Jimmy might be number 2, their magnet will be number 2. Or in their class, Sarah might be number 5, their magnet's number 5. And they're all part of the ensemble. They're on the board, there's an artificial box that says ensemble. All the magnets are there. And while we're teaching, while doing songs, if a student is breaking one of the rules, without stopping a beat, I just walk over and I go over to the student in a kind demeanor. Just say, "Excuse me, Jonathan, can you move your magnet over?" And so they'll move their magnet to the ring outside. The first time is a warning. The second time, they're going to have to sit out and just watch the students that are part of the ensemble, that are participating the right way, how they're supposed to do it. The third time is a letter home. And the thing is, each time you go to get a ring out, but nevertheless, you still are part of the ensemble. You don't want to be seen as separate from the family, because we are still part of the same family. You're just being away from the core. And so this is supposed to be a quick way, supposed to also especially focus on not the student's behavior, or even worse, it's not about the student's character. This is all about focusing on, we are an ensemble, and when you break the rules, you're affecting us as a group. So it's never about the student. It's never about they're doing something wrong. It's always about we are trying to help each other out. And so, got my card mixed up. Yeah. That's fine. Go for it, please.
Okay, so I also want to just give a little shout out to Hans, who's here. Can you hear? Okay, so Hans is like a fantastic, like classroom management person to see. If you ever get a chance.
Tell that's my 6th grader.
Oh. But, you know, we actually just had a chance to interview Hans in our podcast. So I think the QR code does take you to our website.
It does, yeah.
So we haven't posted Hans's episode yet, but it's coming soon.
Coming soon.
So, yes. Please listen.
And so the magnet system is great, but it's more on one side of the spectrum, the more reprimand side. On the positive side, there are other ways to try to encourage a sense of community in the classroom. So for me, at the end of every year, I choose 1 to 3 6th graders to receive the VAPA Music Award. And it's a really big thing. And it's a way of the students showcasing their discipline and their creativity over the past X amount of years at Casillas Elementary, the school I teach at. And the best part is, if they're selected, there's a plaque at the very front of the door, and their name is engraved on it, and it's there for the end of time. Until music, hopefully. No, music is going to stay at Casillas.
Yes, it is.
So
we're mortaring it to the wall.
We are, yes, there we go. And so their name is there until the end of time, forever. And so I have 6th graders, current 6th graders. I hear them, like, mom, oh, I really want to get that one. And so it's a way of them incentivizing themselves to focus and also try to be more creative, try to push themselves outside the box. But not just that, it also allows people to come back and appreciate where they were from. I get loads of former sixth graders, loads of former Casillas members during either choir or after school just come in and just say, this is like my second home. I miss this place. And by instilling the sense of ensemble, the sense of family, the sense of connected culture, you can take away 80% of the classroom management issues because they feel like they belong. That's the key part.
I think to touch on that, I've been teaching, this is my 5th year. In my first couple years I was at 2 schools, and one of the biggest problems that I had was I felt isolated. And I don't know if that's you in your situation, but as the art specialist, there's not anyone else, hopefully there is, but there might not be anyone else at the school who does what you do, and so it's super isolating. And so thinking about classroom management and then school ed management, engaging with your colleagues is absolutely huge. John, thank you. Secluding yourself is one of the worst things that you can do because you get frustrated, the classes don't respond well, and then you don't have that communication with their classroom teacher. There's only so much that as a specialist you can do, seeing the kids maybe once a week, maybe a little bit less if that's your situation. So being able to have a positive rapport with the classroom teacher is going to help you in your classroom because then you're able to talk about, well, your class today, they did X, Y, and Z. They did a great job or they may have struggled in these areas. And then the classroom teacher knows that when they come to your classroom, either to let the kids know, like, hey, that's not okay, and then just kind of they can help aid you in your classroom management skills. Another thing is to ask them for their classroom norms. So if there's something special that they do in their class, you can try and adapt that for when they're with you, just so there's that consistency throughout. Because I've been told by a student, you're not a real teacher. And it's not a great feeling. And so, yeah, if you've ever felt that way, if anyone's ever said that about you, I'm so sorry, you are. But just allowing that kind of continuation of their general class into your class, it kind of helps that fluidity. And then along with that is to kind of just show your colleagues what are things that you do. This past year, one of my colleagues, she teaches 3rd grade, it was her birthday. And she was out that day, and so I had her class. We did an ORF arrangement of happy birthday. There were kids playing xylophones, there was kids using scarves, and I took a short video and then I sent it to her, and she still brings it up today. And so just allowing them to kind of have a peek into your world and what you do is going to be so important. Because I don't know about your situation, but I don't have a ton of colleagues who have an arts background. It's all rather new for them because they didn't have the arts when they grew up. And so it's kind of my job and then kind of your job to expose that to them. And I know that might not be in the contract, but if you want to help your classroom and you want to help your program, you're going to need their buy-in, because if you do it by yourself, you're going to be isolated, you're going to get frustrated, and it's eventually just going to be too much for you. And then invite them to participate. So I have started a ukulele club during the 6th grade and 5th grade lunch recess. And one of our 6th grade teachers, she came up to me and was like, can I join too? I'm like, absolutely you can join. And so she's going to start coming to our ukulele clubs. And so it's rather simple, but it's something where she gets to learn something that she's passionate about, and I get to teach what I'm passionate about, and then she kind of gets a peek into my world of what I do. It's so important to build that camaraderie, as John was saying, just about that family aspect. You're probably, if you stay at your school, you're going to be teaching with these people for a while. And if you don't know anything about them, that's going to be very difficult. I had a colleague that I was engaging with this year, and she was just kind of sharing her personal life. And I had no idea that at home things were just so rough. And it allowed me to have a little bit more empathy for her. And so we talk a lot more, we engage a lot more. When I give her kids back, I try to tend to focus more on the positive things that her kids did. And rather than, well, this kid was running around, this kid was doing that. So I'm like, you know what, these kids, this group, they did a really great job of music. We had moments that weren't so ideal, but overall, we had a pretty good music class. And I found that with engaging with them, I've built a stronger sense. I feel more a part of the school that I teach at. And that's just by saying hi and actually talking to people. And for introverts, I know it's absolutely terrifying, but you got to step out. You can do it. I know you can. Cool.
Engaging with students, a massive, massive topic, obviously. one of my main thoughts is that there isn't a single student in your school, even the ones that end up making your life for that 1 hour a living hell. They didn't enter your room thinking, how can I mess with Mrs. C today? That didn't happen. They didn't come in with that intention. That may have been what ended up happening, but no way did little Bobby decide that's what he was going to do. What essentially probably happened was very reactive, because students are very impulsive creatures. They react on instinct and impulse. They don't react with a decision, they react emotionally. So one of our jobs as our educators is to kind of preempt a lot of those reactions and cut them off at the pass by making sure that our responses are not emotional, that our responses are intellectual, that they're in our heads. And that will help us to foster and create a positive atmosphere within our music rooms, or within our arty, creative rooms. It will also help us to create a safe zone, because as Crystal said earlier on, when we're asking students to be creative in our classrooms, we're asking them to be vulnerable. We're asking them to step outside their own comfort zones, whether it's through dance, through theatre, through art, or through music. We're asking them to do something new, something that a lot of them only ever do in our classrooms. And that's a really big deal for a lot of them. Many of our students are perfectionists. How are they responding when you're pushing them outside their comfort zone and asking them to perform or to create? And yet they're performing or creating something that they don't see as perfect. How are they going to react to that? They may well react disruptively or emotionally, or they may completely and utterly shut down on you. So knowing which of your students suffers from some kind of anxiety, is a perfectionist, and knowing how they're how they are going to respond emotionally to you is a really, really big deal. And you can address them in a completely different way. One of my strategies when I have a student that is perfectionist or has anxiety is to just take the whole task apart and give it to them in really small chunks. And then instead of coming across with critique and criticism and judgments, ensuring that I word my targets as their next step for development. And then they tend not to feel so judged. They tend to feel like they can see where they have to go without feeling that they've been criticised. Also with engaging with our little ones. Dare I?
Yes, you do.
I dare.
You must.
I talked about students that are anxious and shy, and maybe they're perfectionists, and maybe they don't actually want to sing to you. Although who could resist singing to a puppet?
I can't.
Zoe, would you?
Okay. I go first?
You go first.
I go
She can't sing
first.
by
Okay.
herself.
Hello, Amadeus.
How do you do?
My name is Zoe.
I'm pleased to meet you. And then they get to get Amadeus. Now, Amadeus has a second task. She has another task that she helps me with. That when I'm teaching, if there is a student that maybe isn't doing the right thing, she watches them. And maybe she can look a little bit disappointed. And I haven't stopped anything to do with what I'm doing. She might lead me over to something that's bothering her. And she sorry to warn her that. No, it's okay for her to have her phone out. And all of those things can happen while you don't miss a beat with whatever it is that you're teaching. And the students actually, if Amadeus does get disappointed with them and she shakes her head and she tells them off, then they don't feel like they've been reprimanded by me. Because as I mentioned earlier on, I have a very forceful personality and I'm overly affirmative. And I scare my kids sometimes. That's why I've had to come up with all of these strategies to make sure that my kids continue to feel safe in my classroom. And that they continue to feel like they can explore their creativity without judgment.
I'm a firm believer in the power of puppets. My parents were puppeteers, and so, I know. So classroom, I have 4, I know, I love you, Amadeus. My classroom has 4 cabinets stuffed full of their old puppets, and they're pretty fantastic. But they're amazing. They have the same effect on a child as an animal. And so I know you might, I'm not putting this on you, some people might look at puppets and say, oh, that's weird, I would never do that. But you have to think about it, like, adults can be really scary for kids. And especially when you're dealing with somebody who's had trauma in their background. And we have hundreds of kids. We don't have time to go through every IEP and talk to every single parent and find out where someone is coming from. I see them 1 hour once a week. I need to make sure my demeanor is warm and safe. And I need to make sure that since I don't have the kind of face time with every single child that their classroom teacher does, there's less grace for me to lose it on a kid. It's so important. So a puppet is such a good way to safely reinforce rules, to create this environment of, okay, maybe you don't want to talk to me because you don't know me very well, because we've spent less than 4 hours together so far in your little life, and they've been spread out by a week. But maybe you'll sing, I have Daisy the flower. Maybe you'll sing to Daisy, you know? And I also have friends hidden throughout the room. So I have 2 frogs. One is Forte frog, and Forte means loud in music. And I have Fortissimo, so they're brothers. One has a big F on his belly, and one has 2 Fs on his belly. Forte is very vain. He sits under his portrait. I had a little girl named Iris who drew some fan art for Forte. So he sits under his portrait. And Fortissimo, since he's extra loud, he's extra. So he likes to hop around the room and hide. So he's like our year-long elf on the shelf. And the kids, it was magic when I started doing the Fortissimo game, because they'll come in and they'll immediately look for Fortissimo. And the first little kid who finds Fortissimo gets to hold Fortissimo. And it's really funny because now my first year of kindergartners that I had are in 4th grade, and they still want to play the Fortissimo game. So they don't hold them anymore, but now they get to hide them for the little kids, and they think that's really fun. But it's another good reinforcement for participation. If a child is singing really well, and singing can feel scary in front of your peers, and singing can feel very scary in front of a teacher. If they sing really loudly and use a nice voice, they get to hold Forte in their lap. And Forte hops around the room, so he'll jump to the next person. We play lots of singing games. So finding those ways to just feel safe and playful. I think the Orff Schulwerk process is just the most beautiful thing that I've ever been a part of. That's how we all teach music. And the whole philosophy is that we teach children through play. That we take their natural inclinations, we take their need to play and to connect with each other, and we sneak in the pedagogy. And it's incredible, because I can get a class of kids playing a 4-part, piece on different mallet instruments and singing in harmony, and they won't even realize it because they're having so much fun. So finding those ways to sneak play into the day. And then drilling procedures from day one, having clear expectations. When I walk into this room with this teacher, or if you're an itinerant teacher, which I was for a long time, when that teacher walks into my room, I know what to do. So again, having short, clear rules, having very clear signals. So I know with choir, I borrowed this from San Diego Children's Choir. Where'd the Tingshaw go? Can I borrow them?
Yep.
That's all right. So they have numbers. 1 is a slouch. So everyone give me a 1. There you go. 2, you're sitting up a little bit. There you go. 3, sit up on the edge of your chair, ready to sing. Back straight, feet flat on the floor. 4, standing in singing position. We can all do that by now. There you go. Thank you very much. And then in my room, you have to smile, and you have to show at least 4 teeth. And if you're missing one, we count the whole. Okay, good. All right, have a seat. Very good. And then 1 is get your attention. 1 ding. 2, again, rest and ready position. You have to smile at me. There you go. And if I have a little boy being surly, then I'll just go up to him and they know we don't get to sing until we have a nice positive atmosphere, and just encouraging that. They know the rules. We drill them. And then having your simple attention getters. If you can drill your attention getters into your children, and you can stand in front of an assembly and get 400 kids' attention with the same attention getter, all I do is stand at the front of my auditorium for every assembly, and I go, and it's magic. The entire place quiets down.
Setting clear expectations as well, and that all of those ideas wraps into clear expectations. And in an ideal world, I think we do want students that are entering, leaving, sitting nicely, listening, and best effort. And all of these are ideas to help you to foster those magic moments in your classroom?
One of the things, as I've learned about myself, is it's really easy to snap at a student who's misbehaving, especially when it's at the end of the day and they're in kindergarten class and they're super squirrely. And so separating that student from that behavior is kind of something that I've been really trying to focus on this year, is that I'm not angry at that person, I'm angry at the behavior, or the behavior is frustrating me. Oh, thank you. And so one of the things that I was talking with a colleague was, they asked me, what are your pet peeves? And so I know, like, if I have a 6th grader who I ask to do something rather simple, like stand up, and they give me, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. It's like, just stand up. Like, it's not that hard. But I know that now. I know that now. I didn't before, but I know that now. And so then I hit him with a little bit extra kindness. And I could be like, oh, I know I'm the worst for asking you to stand up, but can you please stand up? And they'll eventually do that. But just kind of knowing that they're acting a certain way because something else has happened. They're not maybe angry just because I asked them to stand up if it's in a full group setting. So it's being able to identify for yourself as a teacher, what are those triggers that I just like see red and I'm just really angry. And then once you know that about yourself, when they do happen, you're kind of able to monitor that a little bit better. And then the next thing is just to pause for a moment. I had an episode yesterday with a 6th grade class. Love them, but they're just chatty. And so they were super talkative. It was an interesting day, and so we only had a 30-minute music class. And I was very clear, like, hey, our class is shorter than normal. This is what I want to get through because the next couple weeks we're going to get to this. And we didn't get through it because they were so chatty, and towards the end of class, with about 5 minutes, I paused for a second and just said, okay, it's fine. And so then I had them sit down, I just kind of talked with them and let them know, like, you as people are wonderful, and you need to hear that. Because as I believe it was Crystal had said, that we have a lot of kids with trauma. And so I don't know if my kids have heard that they're appreciated or that they're liked or that they're wonderful. And I believe that people are, And so my kids, they need that little extra encouragement. And it would have been so easy just to kind of snap at them, yell at them. But I paused, I kind of gathered myself, and I just kind of spoke life into them. And so if you're someone who is around anyone who speaks life, like, you love being around that person. And because we have so short interactions with our kids, if we are speaking life into them and just encouraging them and building them up, those negative behaviors that we don't love, but we love the kids, they tend to fall away, which has just been really helpful for me. And then remember that you could be one of the few adults that you trust. And so if you're able to kind of accomplish those things, you're able to speak life into your students, you're able to just kind of encourage them and be sincere about it and really care about them and build that rapport, they're going to want to come back, and they're going to be like, this is my second home. But if you're a teacher who is very strict and very mean and just constantly focused more on the task than the person, then you're not going to have kids that come back. And this illustration for me just kind of hit home, is I can be this really nice teacher, or I can be Hulk. And unfortunately in my career, I've been Hulk, and it hasn't been successful. Like, I don't have a ton of those stories where kids are coming back. Starting to do more now as I've grown as a teacher, and kids come back and they want to be in the classroom and want to talk and stuff. But my 3rd year, I hadn't seen a previous student before. But that's because I was more like this teacher. I hadn't identified what was, what pet peeve of mine. I wasn't really speaking life into my students because I was more focused on the task and more focused on the content and the curriculum rather than them as a person. And so I think it's super important for us just to kind of distinguish that, is we don't love the behaviors. We should be loving our students.
I was supposed to tell this story at the beginning and I forgot, but it's okay because it fits better here anyway. A couple of days ago, I had a little boy who was being very difficult and just derailing the entire class. And it was really hard to deal with because he was being very defiant back at me. And first year teacher 11 years ago would have reacted very differently, but I just tried, I needed to separate him from what he was doing. I'm like, I'm going to talk to you after class. And I told him that. The bell rang and he bolted out the door. It's like, okay. He fell in the hallway. And so everybody walked over and I'm like, all right. So I just walked over. He was sitting on the floor and I just sat next to him for a little while and I let him lead. And he said, okay, Miss Pridmore, I guess we can talk. And I said, all right, buddy, you want to tell me what's going on? And it took a long time. It took 15 minutes of my 45-minute lunch break to sit there with him. But I learned some things about what was going on in his life. And as I walked him to lunch, I learned that his best friend since kindergarten moved away that year. And so he was feeling really alone at school. It took a lot of questions, and it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of me taking my very much needed bathroom break and putting it on delay. But that moment mattered to that little boy. And he came in again this week. It was still not easy. He's still derailed my class. But I was able to have a moment with him where I just said, "Bud, I need you to sit down. And if you're not ready to participate, that's okay. But maybe you and I can connect later if you need that." And so I have that connection now that I'm able to take. And if you snap at the kids like I did for way too long, because it's like, no, but I have to do this, and this. And I have 200 kids coming through this room today. And if you break a drum, I wrote a grant for that drum. You know, it's easy to get so caught up in those details, but they don't matter. And what matters are people. So, yeah, just wanted to share that. And then repetition and frequency. I've already covered a lot of it. Drill your procedures. I have 3 positions the kids need to get into. They know they're going to get a high five, a handshake, or a hug from me before we walk into the room. They know there's going to be music playing and to watch for my cues for a movement activity on the way into the room. And so we do some sort of movement activity to end up in a circle. This is really important for Mod Severe SDC. I do things in the same order every single class. So the actual content might be different, but they always know. We start with guitar songs. We do a scarf song. We move on to unpitched percussion, usually rhythm sticks or something similar. And then maybe we get to do barred instruments that day. And I've had so many people come into my room and just not believe that I have Mod Severe kids playing xylophones nicely. And it took a long time to get there, but they can do it. And they can sound good, and they can keep a steady beat. And I have nonverbal kids who will sing back at me in my classroom because we've built that sense of safety up together over 4 or 5 years. And it takes a long time, but they thrive in consistency and in safety. So let them do the same thing over and over again. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made as an early teacher is I had all this fun stuff I wanted to do, and so I did a different thing every single class. Kids like to do the same things over and over again. I have a 6 and a 7-year-old. They watch the same movie like 3 times in one afternoon. Not that they watch that much TV. I'm a much better mom than that. But rerun the same games multiple times. Rerun the same activities. Let them master the skill before moving on. It's frustrating to feel like they come into this room where they're already getting creative, getting out of their comfort zone, and then it's different every single time. Let it sit, let it marinate, and then it makes your life easier, less to plan. What's your magic number for repetition of times that you repeat instructions? Was that you? You have a number of times that you say something. What's that? Wait, we have 2 minutes left. Okay. 3 times. 3 times. That's the magic number. I know. Well, what did we want to end on? Oh, we have just one last piece. One last piece. Yeah. Okay.
So I have found the perfect lesson plan template for me. I am a very scattered person, very scattered brain, and this particular lesson plan template really organizes my thoughts. It's right here. And it allows me to kind of put my objectives and everything I want to do. It has the California music standards that I'm able to cross off. And then on this side, terrible image quality, I apologize. But like it tells you your beginning activity, how long, the next activity, the next activity, the next activity, and then there's a spot for notes. And so for me, when the class is lining up, I have a binder of my 3rd grades, and it has all my lessons that I've done so far. So when the class is leaving, I can jot down a couple of thoughts. Got to this, didn't get to this. And so later when I'm planning next week's lessons, I'm able to look at that and be like, okay, this is what this class did. I didn't get to this in this class, and so I have to do that in this class. So it just really helps me organize because up here is absolute spaghetti and it's kind of a mess. Because there are different things that we're constantly thinking about, and you want kids to be safe, and you're thinking about the next class, and there's a lot that goes on in our heads. And so find a lesson template that works for you. On your session notes, if you got them, there is a smaller QR code. That's a QR code to the website wemakethemusic.org. A dear friend of ours, her name is Victoria Bowler. She has created absolutely phenomenal material for the music teachers. And so in that, it'll link you to all of her products. She has multiple things. There are just the lesson plans like this that you have right to and you can edit how you like. Or there's a full elementary music kit. It's a little bit more expensive, but it just has lots of really good things. And so...
Link in your notes.
Yes, so that's that smaller QR code.
It reached the limit. Yeah. Just so you know.
It reached the limit. I appreciate that. I'll fix that on the back end. So, I'm glad people used it. That's amazing. Be honest with yourself on how the lesson went. If it went well, celebrate that. If it needed improvement, that's okay. and then reflect once emotions have changed, and then crush it.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you. If you have any further questions, we're an open book. We don't consider ourselves experts, but we've done a lot of trial and error, and anything we know we're willing to share. Zoe and Jonathan and Mark and I have created a podcast. We are the Chaotic Harmony Classroom Podcast. T-shirts available.
You can listen to our interview with Lowri.
Yes, we did feature Lowri on a podcast. So all of us walked into a situation where we're reestablishing music programs after about a 30-year absence down in Chula Vista. Lauren Shelton is our amazing VAPA coordinator down there. We love you. We featured Lauren in episode 0, and if you don't know the story with what's going on in Chula Vista, I think it's worth a listen. So check us out, let us know what you think, and catch us in the hallway. We'd love to talk. Thank you for coming.